Alright, so I'm going to show you how you can create some seamless textures using AI. So if you don't know what a seamless texture is, essentially it allows you to scroll a texture infinitely. So if I just show you here as I scroll along this texture, you can see that there's really no endpoint. So this is good if you want to use it as a pattern in a graphic design, or you want to apply it to some type of 3D object like in Blender or Unreal. So we're going to create a texture real quick, and I'm going to be using Google's Imagen 4, and you can access that by going to Google and typing in Whisk, and then go to this page which shows you um, the sign-in page for Whisk. So if I hit launch Whisk here, then you're going to enter tool. You probably have to sign into your Google account also, and then eventually you will reach this page. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that your aspect ratio is set to 1:1. When you first open it, you might be set on either portrait or landscape, and you want to make it a 1:1 square. So now we can type in our prompt, and I'm going to keep it pretty simple, and I'm just going to put watercolor texture, and that's about it. You can be more specific if you want something that is a little bit more unique, but for the sake of this, I'm going to keep it pretty basic. And then I'm just going to go down and hit this arrow to run the prompt, and you're going to see these two boxes pop up. All right, so we got our two textures that we can choose from, and I'm just going to go with this one on the right and hit this arrow to download it. So now we got our texture open in Photoshop, and we want to turn this into seamless texture. So to do that, we're going to go up to the filter option here, and then go all the way down to what says other, and then hit offset. You're going to see two values for horizontal and vertical. And if we move this over, you can start to see like a harsh line up here, which is the seam. If you don't see it when you move it, make sure that the preview button is turned on. Okay, so we're just going to hit OK. It doesn't matter how far you move it, just make sure that you can visibly see the seam line here, and hit OK. So on the left-hand side, we're going to go over to the tools, and we're going to select the rectangular selection tool and just select the seam like this. Make sure you have a pretty wide margin here. You don't want to go too close to it. And the reason for that is that we're going to be using the internal AI within Photoshop, which is called the generative fill. And the generative fill works best when it has context around the change that you're trying to make. So by giving it a little bit more space, it kind of understands the context with inside this box, and it works much better this way. So once we have our selection, we're going to hit the generative fill button, and you're going to have an option to enter a prompt here, but we actually don't need to enter anything, and we're going to just hit generate. And now you can see how it's removed the seam and blended these two images into one. So now you actually get three options here. So this is the first one, and we can scroll through these to see which one that we like the best. So I think I'm gonna go with this one because you get a smooth transition between the yellow and the blue, and they're not overlapping like they are here. So, but obviously it's up to your preference, but I'm gonna go with this one. So now what's cool about the generative fill tool is that, let's say we didn't like that change, we could always go over to the layers and turn that off, and we go right back to having a seam line if we want to try it again, but we could also just hit generate and run that prompt again. So now that we fixed the horizontal seam, now we need to fix the vertical seam, so the seam going upwards. So to do that, I'm going to actually select both of these layers, and wait, first make sure that the background is turned into layer from background. That way it unlocks the layer, and select these two and hit this folder button to put that in the group. And then I'm just going to right click and hit duplicate group. Just hit OK. You can name this if you would like. And then I'm going to open up the second group and select both of these, and I'm going to merge layers. So now if at any time we want to go back to the original, where we have the option to turn off and on the gender fill layer, we can. So now to access the vertical seam, I'm going to go over to filter and go to other and hit offset. I'm going to reset the horizontal back to 0. And now we're going to touch the vertical option here and move this up until we see a seam line appear. Hit OK. Then I'm going over to my rectangular marquee box and select an area around the seam. Hit generative fill, leave that blank, and hit generate. Now we have our generations done, and I'm just gonna kind of scroll through these. So I actually don't like any of these. I can still see like a pretty harsh line there. Technically it works, but I'm going to see if I can get something that's a little bit more blended. So I'm just going to hit generate again. And this one seems to be working the best. I could run this again. Maybe I could use like a wider box to give it more context, but I think for now this is fine. And I'm going to do the same thing I did last time and just duplicate the group. And for the new group, I'm going to select both these and just hit merge layers. Cool. Now, to check to see if it's seamless, I'm going to go over to filter, other, and offset again. And now, if I just set this back to 0 and I begin to just move around this, you can see that it looks like the texture goes on infinitely and we don't have those harsh lines anymore. So now you can use this texture for graphic design layers or patterns, but I like to use it mostly for creating textures for 3D objects. So I'm going to open up Blender, and I already have a cube open here, and I'm just going to apply that texture that we made to the cube. And we can see how it wraps around the cube pretty nicely. We do have this harsh line here, but again, that's because I didn't make it blend more. You could obviously spend more time to make a smoother transition here, but for the most part, you don't have any harsh seam lines around this texture here. But I could actually adjust this by just moving the scale of this a little bit. And maybe if I go up this way, and there we go. Now we have a texture that wraps around this cube pretty nicely.